There's an old song which goes, "The rich man rides a streetcar, the poor man rides a train. The hobo walks the railroad tracks, but he gets there just the same." Well, Laverne has never been a hobo town. It's always been something more than that. But it was due to these rails which came through this area that the city of Lordsburg was established in 1887. When the Santa Fe train came through, a man by the name of Lord bought land in this area, and he convinced the Santa Fe that this was the best way to go, and it was. But by the time it got here, he had the land, platted out a city, and in 1887, a great land auction was held. I'm Galen Beery, the president of the Historical Society, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about the murals that you will see here and there in Laverne, which tell a little bit of the history of Laverne. Right now, we're next on this railroad track. We're right next to one of the old packing houses, which was in Laverne, and this one tells a little about the city of Laverne through the murals that we have over here. This building itself is built along the railroad tracks. It was one of the early packing houses, and therefore it's very appropriate that we have these murals painted upon it. The big hotel was one of the great prominent buildings of Laverne from 1887 until 1927. It was built as the Lordsburg Hotel, but it never had a paying customer. By the time it was finished, California had a boom and had a bust then when there weren't enough people to buy property. And the hotel itself was sold for about $200,000, built for about $200,000, was sold for about $50,000, plus several hundred lots to 4 men from the Church of the Brethren. And they started Lordsburg College. The building had 3 stories and all sorts of turrets. It was supposed to have had 122 rooms in it and housed several generations of students who went to Laverne Academy, or Lordsburg Academy, and then later Lordsburg College. The picture at the top here is shows the tracks of the big red cars, the railroad system, the trolley system that went throughout Los Angeles. Down here we had a great big station, the Pacific Electric Station, built for Lordsburg. This was just south of Walnut Street on E Street and was sometime in the 1950s burned down by the fire department so they could get rid of the building and practice fire safety techniques. I sure wish they hadn't have taken it down. It would have made a great museum. The picture up on the right shows several of our residents on a buggy, and they're in an orange grove where the oranges are being picked and placed in bags and then into the big orange lugs from which they were carried out. Laverne was known as the heart of the Orange Empire and remained so up until the 1950s because we grew more oranges here than anywhere else in the entire world. This picture, this mural, was painted in 1992 by a work team that consisted of Joy McAllister, Jeff Faust, and Chris Tooney. And it depicts Laverne as it was around 1937 or 38. I know that year because you can tell by the age of the cars and the fact that Van Deusen's, which is Laverne's largest and first big department store, was opened in 1936 or 37. The building on the corner is Hamilton's Laverne Drugstore. And Mr. Hamilton took over from a man called Mr. Herr. This was one of the old-time drugstores where you had a great big marble slab and you could get some really good sodas just by walking down from Laverne College. The Van Deusen's, of course, was the biggest department store, And right next to that is a building which had, at that time, various shops, including a 5 and 10 cent store. It later became the public library and is now the Village Inn. There was another restaurant right across the street, right across the alley, which is shown by the canopy hanging in front. We had Kewish's Bakery, we had Mr. Haynes' Barber Shop, and then on this side of the street you can see the emblem hanging up on the wall of the mobile gas station that they used to have there. Excuse me, not mobile gas, it was the Flying Horse, Texaco. In 1929, the very fashionable thing to do was to get an old Model T, and you painted it up, and you filled it with girls, and you drove around and had a wonderful time. And this picture was taken in front of this particular service station, which was here in 1929. It was known as the Palms, and the owner came out and he posed with all the Bonita High School girls in the probably about a 1920 Model T. Now, we have changed this mural a bit. The original picture shows the car with all sorts of writing over it, such as "Chicken, here's your coop," and things of this sort. But when they made a mural out of it, they took the writing off because it would probably look like graffiti, I guess. At the corner of 4th Street and D Street in Laverne, which is now Bonita and D Street, is probably the heart of Laverne. And on the corner of one of the buildings here, the side of one of the buildings, we have a transportation mural which was painted back about 1997. In here we have the Santa Fe train depicted, the old red cars which went to that building that was just down below the tracks at the Pacific Electric. We have the Safeway store, which became the museum of, it became Wilson Library. And at the far right we have a depiction of the Golden Eagle gas station, which stood on this corner back in the 1930s. That, in case any of you don't remember, was when gasoline used to sell for 19 cents, almost 20 cents, and you could drive up and fill up your tank for less than $5. Now, when they were painting this, one problem was they couldn't find a picture of the original station, and they went all over town looking for a copy of the picture. And I said, I don't have that one, but I have one of me pumping gas on the opposite corner over here at Gene Gay's Richfield station in the 1930s. Well, they had to have an original one. They finally ended up with a picture of a gas station over in Azusa somewhere, and they used that instead of one that I had. Never quite forgiven them for them, but it's a nice mural. In 1992, the same trio that painted the picture down by the railroad tracks came and put this mural here on the side of a building in historic downtown Laverne's district. Now, this depicts an orange crate label of the 1920s, grown and packed by the Laverne Orange Association, and it depicts a view north of Laverne looking towards the mountains. The house in the middle of the picture is no longer there, but the great-great-grandson of the family that lives here is a man by the name of Don Kendrick, and his family's been here a long time, but he never realized that his family was the one that owned that house, and he was standing here when Evelyn Hollinger, Laverne's historian, quietly explained it to him, and you should have seen his jaw drop. Anyway, it's a beautiful picture of what Laverne used to look like in the old days. Well, I've enjoyed showing some of these things in Laverne to you. My name's Galen Beery, and I'm a member of the Historical Society. It's a nice little town, and we hope you'll keep it that way. Until then, enjoy the history of Laverne, which we put on the walls as murals.